Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Kageyama, and I'd like to welcome everyone here to the Cancer Conquering community. And we are so excited to have an amazing advocate for cancer. And she has an unbelievable story, which I know all of you will uh, be mesmerized with, as I always am when I hear her. Uh, so what I do, without further ado, what I'd like to do is introduce our speaker today, and her name is, and she's also a fellow Texan, by the way. Her
Yeah.
name
Uh-huh.
is Rebecca Esparza. Rebecca, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us, and please tell us a little bit about yourself, and we are in for a great session.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for the warm reception. Um, my name is Rebecca Esparza. I live in Corpus Christi, Texas, so which is right along the Gulf Coast of Texas. And on Thanksgiving Day of 2001, I woke up from what was supposed to be a routine surgery to remove fibroid tumors, to a radical hysterectomy and a diagnosis of ovarian cancer stage 2B. So it was quite a shock because doctors didn't warn me ahead of time that a radical hysterectomy was possible. But afterwards, he would say he did it to save my life. However, I was only 30 years old and had not had any children. So today they don't do things like that anymore, thankfully. But that's what happened to me. And you would think that a hysterectomy without basically without your consent, um, ovarian cancer, those two things in itself were gut-wrenching news, right? Well, the worst part about it was I had no health insurance. I had had previous surgeries to remove fibroid tumors, and unfortunately, I did not have insurance. As a freelancer, worked for myself. Um, I tried to get insurance on my own and was told, well, since you've had previous surgeries, gynecologic surgeries, we're gonna cover you or we'll issue insurance, but not anything gynecologically related. So these are this is 2001, back in the pre-existing condition days. So I opted not to do insurance. And 3 months later, I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. So um, tried to navigate the social services system at the time. And if you think about what was happening in 2001, um, we didn't have the resources that we have today. We didn't have the online support groups. We didn't have in-person support groups. We didn't have the internet that was in its infancy, basically. So there were almost literally no resources. So finally, by the time I figured out about indigent care in my hometown, um, the cancer had spread to the liver and the lining of the stomach, and it was stage 4. So, a couple of months into chemo, uh, doctors told me to start saying my goodbyes, to get my affairs in order. Um, it was a lonely time in my life. To think that at age 30 that it could possibly all be done. But 24 years later, I'm still here. I'm thriving. I've since got another cancer, many different medical roadblocks, bumps in the road, a lot of emotional scars, a lot of PTSD, side effects from the chemo, side effects from my second cancer, which was thyroid cancer. Um, about 10 years ago, I had a surgery at MD Anderson where they thought I had colon cancer. I had a 12-hour surgery at MD Anderson, and it ended up being scar tissue from all my abdominal surgeries. If that that situation created, it took away my left kidney, some of my lower bowel. Um, all I can say is every day is a new day. Every day is a gift. I don't have to tell everyone here that the thing that's gotten me through it is owning the bad days. There are bad days, and I own them 100%, but get back up. Don't stay down too long. Um, you just have to power through it. But those bad days, I own them. And I used to call them my game show network days, where I like to watch game show after game show after game show, just kind of mindless TV, just something just to have something on, and I'd float in and out of sleep. But the next day I would go out and force myself to go do something, go run errands, go take a walk, go walk my dog, do something. Don't stay down too long. And I think that alongside with my faith in God and my family, I've been able to see my 54th birthday, which I never in a million years thought I would make it this far. And I'm incredibly blessed. And I try to do what I can to help others through the journey and to remind others that there's always hope. So,
All right, talk about owning your bad days. That was the first time I heard that, and yeah, talk about that because as we all know, cancer is a very mental thing, and it's not addressed by the mainstream pretty much at all. So that's a very important point.
sure. I just lead into them and I fully embrace that bad day. And I that means taking care of myself. That means uh relaxing, sleeping, listening to my body. Maybe those days my body wants extra sleep. And those days still happen. There's days that I get 12 hours of sleep. For some reason, my body is a curious thing. It's an anomaly. And I've had doctors scratch their heads, say, well, I've never seen this before. Well, welcome to my life. Um, I just try to give the body what it wants. And sometimes it's very light eating for that day, a lot of sleep, lots of water, and just resting. And I'm not used to that. And it was a push-pull fight to get to that point to where I would just, okay, listen to the body. The body understands more than my brain does sometimes. And it was a fight until I finally realized just let the body do what it needs to do to heal. So own those bad days and pray for a better day the next day.
Awesome. Let's go back, and you just kind of glossed over it real quickly, but this is a huge part of your journey. When you went in for that routine surgery and
Mhm.
woke up from the surgery and you had experienced a radical hysterectomy. Talk about what was going through your mind at that time and things like that. And thank God that's not allowed anymore because that is just insane. So
It
yeah,
really
if you could
is.
expand on that because that's a huge, huge topic in and of itself.
Yeah. The doctor got away with it. Number one, I live in Texas. Um, there are a lot of safeguards in place for medical malpractice here and limitations. And plus, at the end of the day, I was still alive. So I've had multiple people that I tell that to, and they grab me after a talk or something, and they'll say, you should have really gone after that doctor, you know, yada yada. And I tell them, well, thank you for your concern, but I'm alive, and I want to focus on the positive. I want to focus on the fact that um, neither here nor there at that point, I did not have a chance to say anything. I was totally incapacitated. He made that call during the surgery. So that choice was taken away from me. What happened, that instance has made me extremely vocal on patient rights, extremely vocal on being your own best advocate, extremely vocal for people to ask all the questions before you go into a surgery about what could happen, when I did this thing with surgery, I was 30, extremely young. I was a young 30. I would say like probably emotionally, probably around a 23, 24-year old. Um, it blindsided me. And since then, I've learned how to advocate for myself. And oddly enough, and sadly enough, our healthcare system has not gotten better. It's gotten much worse. And even to this day, I'm still fighting to advocate for myself. Um, Mostly due to access to care. I live in more of a rural community, a smaller community, where I don't have the same access to care as somebody that lives in a Houston or Dallas. And what gets covered by insurance and what doesn't get covered, and deductibles and things like that. And it's still a fight, but it's still one that I'm willing to make as long as there's breath in my body. That's something that I continue to do.
So the doctor that performed the surgery, what did he say when you came out of anesthesia to justify it? And a follow-up question would be, do you feel that he truly had your best intentions at heart?
I really do. I do think he did what he thought was best at the time. Um, and how he justified it was, I was trying to save your life. I wanted to make sure that we got all the cancer. So even though the cancer was stage 2B, it had only spread to that one fallopian tube. He could have saved the other side because the cancer had not spread. But in his mind's eye, let's just take it all out. Um, I don't know. He was a younger doctor, so maybe he didn't feel like his skills were good enough to make sure that he got all the cells. And, who knows? Honestly, I try not to think about it too much, because I don't want to hold any ill will, because I feel like any negativity that stays in my body is only hurtful for my body. So I've just tried to release it and not think about it too much. Um, it happened. I didn't have any control. It's done and gone. And I wish it was different. I wish that outcome had been different. But what I could do now is continue fighting for my health, and being a better advocate, not only for my health, but for my family's health. Like when I help my mom with her medical stuff, when I help my friends or people in the cancer community and help them think about things differently. Also, when I participate in clinical trials or studies, things like that, help the physicians and the researchers understand things from the patient point of view. I like to participate in those types of things so they understand where we're coming from, and don't forget that beyond the study that they're working on, their research imp has direct implications on people's lives. And I think for folks that are researchers, that all they do is just pour stuff into petri dishes and put them in those little spinner things, and all they do is just work with animals and mice in the labs, and they don't deal with patients. So when they have somebody come like me come along and I'm working with them on a project and we're doing Zoom calls like this, they're like, "Whoa, I never thought of it that way," or "I never thought about that perspective." And that's why I feel so strongly about what I do, because people need to know that things like what happened to me have not only just happened to me, there are other people that have had similar stories. I'm just one person that's trying to elicit change where I can.
That's fantastic. You mentioned a point, and I want to bring it back up. You could have very easily held a grudge all these years and, blamed it on the doctor, but you've done something that is really important for all of us to learn. And it's to forgive and move on. And uh, you know, I learned myself how important that is, um, to forgive. I was working with a hypnotherapist, and one of the focal points is in order to move on and to let go, is to forgive the people that you have felt have wronged you. Um, and I'll tell a quick story right now. I worked at my family business in Southern California for 25 years. And so I was working with my father, my uncle, my aunt, my cousin, two brothers, and two sisters. And you talk about a lot of family, and working with family, as everybody knows, is very difficult. And so the thing that would go through my mind on a daily basis was I couldn't stand working with my brothers. I mean, everybody else I got along with fine, but my brothers, were so negative. And I just, every day I had asked myself, why am I here? And the money was great. Um, and, you're working with family and everything like that. But one day I decided I'm not putting up with this anymore. And so I told him after 25 years, and I was the one who ran the place too. I told him I'm not coming back. I just can't take it anymore. And so that created a big firestorm and a big rift in the family, which, today I'll get to today. But what happened was prior to that, we always had family get-togethers, Christmas, Easter, and other times on the weekends, and everybody would come. Once I left, everything changed, and there was a big split in the family, which I wasn't happy about. But so I was working with a hypnotherapist, and one of the things she highly encouraged me was to forgive and move on, and that was really, really difficult. I mean, really difficult. And so I thought about it and I thought about it, and it took me a long time, but I decided, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to reach out to the two brothers that I felt, you know, and it was both sides. It wasn't just me and it wasn't just them. You know, as you know, with family, it's not the easiest thing. So what I did was I got both of their email addresses, and I wrote them a nice email and I said, and this was probably 6 or 7 years after I left. So a lot of time had passed for it to, you know, boil over and grow. And, pretty soon it just gets to be, the longer time goes on, when you don't address things like this, the tougher it gets. So I wrote an email to both of them, and I'm shocked at the way it turned out. One brother said, and I said, I apologize for my part in, anything that you may have feel wronged you, and I'm willing to move on if you are. One brother said, okay, yeah, I accept your apology and I apologize too. And now to this day, we get along great, which is shocking to me. But it took me reaching out to them to do that. Now, on the other hand, the other brother, he said, I want to have nothing to do with you. Uh, you know, I appreciate you reaching out, but we're done. And I was fine with that too, because at least I made the effort and I did everything I could to, you know, to reach out and forgive. And and so nothing has changed.
Wow.
But you know, I felt really good about it because of the fact that I made the effort. And what happens is what I've learned is you by not forgiving, you're suppressing, and suppression can lead to disease. And so it's very, very important to, uh, as part of our journeys, is to forgive people in your life. And so, you know, I'm not here to tell you to do it. It's something that I did, but it was really, really worth it as far as I'm concerned, because, you know, uh, 50% of the situation is better than 0%. I'm really thankful that we've been able to do that. So talk more about, Rebecca, about forgiveness and how because you of all people could have held the biggest grudge against that doctor because that radically, radically changed your life. So talk about how uh, forgiveness has been played an important part in your life.
Well, I've always been an optimist, so I'm thankful for that. That's probably helped keep me alive this long. I try to look at things from the positives. Um, I didn't get my own kids, but my sister had two boys, and she shared them with me throughout. Now, one's 21 and the other's going to be 15. So I guess the hard, the fun times, now one teenager and one that's already an adult, my hanging out with the kids time is done, but that would have happened anyway if I was a mom. So um, I just look at things from the positive. Yeah, I didn't get my own, but I have my nephews that are blood related. So it's not the same, obviously, but I still get to have a deep bond with kids that I care about. So that helped healing tremendously.
Yeah, that is fantastic. Uh, let's open up for group participation right now about forgiveness. And you know, I think we've all experienced many things in our lives, and let's talk about how forgiveness has played a role in your life. Anybody want to chime in on that?
I'll go first.
Go ahead.
So Rebecca, first of all, it's like you're a freaking warrior, okay? For going through all the things that you went through, for dealing with all these challenges, and they kind of still come up on top like that. It's really powerful. There's not enough of that going on. Forgiveness is a powerful tool to be able to do that because it cleanses you at the same time. You know what I mean? And then you kind of just set everything out and what's going on. Because for me, when you first said that, I was like, can you say lawsuit? Like I was like, my
Yeah,
whole negative side was like, like somebody's
yeah,
gotta pay. You know what I mean? You
yeah,
took me of my life, right? But then at the same time, you kind of just grew from it and then just said, okay, well, I'm alive, right? I'm alive, and and I can actually give back and kind of talk to people about it. So it's a very powerful story when it comes to that. For me, when it comes to forgiveness, I was a very negative person. Okay. And it was from me dealing with my cancer and trying to understand, kind of what was going on. I was kind of looking for people who could support me with it, but they didn't. And I had a really close friend of mine that we were very close. And, she was very like understanding at the time and very supportive. But my toxic personality from trying to understand what was going on, I kind of just pushed her away. And she would always remind me of, you need to treat me right, right? Treat me right. And I was like, no, you're not all that. You know what I mean? It's like, but in the end, it's like the scripture says, do unto others as you would want them to do unto you. And that's kind of how it kind of freed me from being the way I was because I needed that. And I started to forgive her. And really, there was nothing to forgive when it came to her. It was me to do that. Now, obviously, our relationship has changed, and there's great distance that would happen between that. But I've learned and grown as a person of kind of being around groups like this where people can actually talk about, what's going on with them. And, I think you should reach out to the Nightbird Foundation and actually connect with Mitch. I think they're doing a lot of great and wonderful things. I think they would really be supportive of being able to help you. I'm not doing it for another book. I'm just kind of saying, like, I think what the Nightbird Foundation is doing is a very, very big and positive thing to support people with cancer, especially women. And I think, kind of just maybe kind of get involved with like helping little children and stuff like that. I think that would bring you more joy as far as being around little children and kind of just helping them along the way, kind of gives you that satisfaction. But, you know, I applaud you. I applaud you for doing the things that you're doing, man. I don't know, man. It would take me a long time to even like learn how to forgive, especially at what happened to you at such a young age. I was like, my God, like, wake up and I'm like, what? He was going to change my car tire, but I got a new car. Like, what happened there? Like,
Exactly. Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Great analogy. Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
you're amazing. You're amazing.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. And then I also look at the flip side. I also think, what if this was just part of God's plan? What if he hadn't taken everything and the cancer did come back? Or what if he hadn't taken anything and I had a child and I couldn't conceive and I wouldn't be able to have a child anyway. There's a million other scenarios of it was best that I didn't. I have a lot of friends right now because I'm 54. Friends right now that are sending their kids away to college, and I think to myself, it's probably best that I didn't because I would be one of those moms that be like, okay, I'm gonna be at the apartment next door, and I'm like moving in with my college child, and they'll be like, "Oh God, mom's," it probably. I just joke that it was probably God knew what He was doing because I would be one of those helicopter moms, and it worked out the way it was supposed to work out. It's a coping mechanism. Humor is a huge part of how I've survived. Laughing at things, laughing at myself, self-effacing humor. That's how one of my coping mechanisms is to laugh it off. I mean, there's science that says that good belly laugh, the laugh that makes that from inside, that's therapeutic for you. It releases those good hormones. Even in the most trying of times, I've seen humor in things, and that has helped 1,000%.
So let me just tell you guys like a little funny story. So the restaurant that I was working with caught fire, so it's over, right? Everybody's got to go look for a new job. But on our website, the company is being supportive, all these nonprofits is kind of helping in, pouring in donations to help support the employees. So I go to this Filipino store. Now I'm pure Hawaiian, okay, 100% pure Hawaiian, but my stepfather was Filipino. Okay, so I always would walk around going, man, thank God I'm Filipino, right? And people would go, but you're Hawaiian, right? Well, I say it because my stepdad was the one that raised me. So when I say that, I'm pretty much honoring him. So I go into the Filipino store and I'm checking out all this, and they got what is called balut. So I don't know if you guys know what that is, but Filipinos love eating balut. Okay, so balut is an unhatched bird that's dead in its shell. And what they do is they crack the shell and they suck out the juice and they eat this bird, right? It's a delicacy for them. So I go onto our website where everybody kind of just chatting, and I put this picture of the balloon on it. And I go and joke around with my classmates that I went to school with. And I said, Tony, I missed you, right? So she messaged me, like she texted me and she's like, I don't think that's funny at all. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? And then she's like, that sounds like you're being racist. And I'm like, dude, I read message her back and it goes, we had a fire. All right. We had a fire. Everybody's sad. Everybody's got to go repart and go look for them. What are you doing? She's like, oh, I don't think that's funny at all. And I'm just like, you're just thinking about you instead of making it where open up the door where everybody's going, oh, what's balut? What is this? You can make a joke about it. No, that's not what you wanted. Like, no, you're making fun of me. You're being racist about the Filipino community. I was like, that's why she's never gonna change.
Yeah. Some people just don't want to be happy. Yeah.
Well, I want to chime in about Guy. Um, Guy messaged me, what was it, a couple of weeks ago when the restaurant burned down? It's been a couple of weeks, right? And he messaged me that, hey, because he had just gotten this job and he was real happy there. And, he was saying, oh, I'm, really happy here. I'm doing what I love to do. He works in the restaurant business and, uh, and then all of a sudden, before he gets to work, the restaurant burns down. And I got to commend you because I was really impressed with the way you handled all of that. And he just said it was meant to be, and God is going to take care of us, and we move on. And so that is growth. That is absolutely awesome, guys. So I salute you. That is absolutely incredible. Uh, Georges, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, first of all, Rebecca, thank you for sharing. You're such a powerful story. There's,
Thank you.
as a believer, things don't really happen to us, they happen for us. I think just listening to you, some of the things that you said now that your nephews are older, and if you had a kid that will be going to school right now to college, and you will be moving to the town.
That'd be a mess.
Yeah,
Be a
but
total mess.
yeah, but it's remarkable, what you've gone through and the attitude you have now. And one thing that really struck me, and I went through this, is that they were not giving you any chance. Say, go get and work on your matters. You're not going to live too much longer. And here you are. That proves that we're not a statistic. We're just a person. And I always avoided to hear stats because they'll mess with my mindset. On forgiveness, it's funny. I'm a on top of being also a coach and hypnotherapist, I'm also a best-selling author, and I have a whole chapter on forgiveness as a path to healing. And funny enough, and I'm gonna offer to post the video after the meeting. I post a YouTube video every week. It's called, I have a little program that says "Shut the Door to Disease." And yesterday's post was, the title was "Forgiveness: A Path to Healing." And the closing in that video, it's a 4-minute video. I'm gonna post it if I can do. Can I do that on our group?
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
really, it's more components. In your case, it's more the forgiveness part. But in my situation, it was also being forgiven. I thought I hurt some people when I was in.
We lost your audio, Georges. Okay, Georges, we're going to come back to you. Uh, Elizabeth, did you have something to say?
I can say something. I just turned on my video because I got back from taking
Oh,
my.
okay. I thought you wanted to say something.
No, but I can say something because actually, Rebecca, your story resonates because my mom has ovarian cancer, so
Mm.
I had it, and then my cousin actually, who was my mom's sister's daughter, she had a hysterectomy at 31. So, but she had already had her kids like at 23 and 24, so it was kind of like a different thing. And I don't know if it was ovarian, but anyways, I think like the thing about forgiveness is so powerful. I noticed I was reading some things. I have this book. It's called Metaphysical Anatomy, I think, and I looked up ovarian cancer. And when you're talking about the like advocating for patient rights, one of the things where in the Metaphysical Anatomy book saying ovarian cancer can originate from like not having boundaries with people and situations. And I noticed that with my mom and my grandma, especially with men, they have this pattern of like not having boundaries and like advocating for themselves. And even now, as I'm watching my mom go through this cancer treatment, it's almost like it's just like whatever the doctor says. And she's kind of like putting herself like below what, like she's not, it doesn't really matter. It's like she's not thinking about how she feels or tuning into how she feels intuitively. And so I just felt like that was interesting how, you know, you are now advocating, you know, for patients and things like that, and saying like no, you know, hands off and all that. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I have some resources for you if you want to connect.
Oh yeah,
Um,
definitely,
yeah,
definitely. Yeah, I would love that. So
yeah,
but cool. Well,
yeah,
thank you.
yeah. You're totally right. I've heard the same thing. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I had a very rare type of ovarian. Ovarian is already rare, and I
Yeah.
had a rare subset of a rare cancer. I had germ cell,
Oh, okay.
which the treatment for germ cell was akin to testicular cancer in men. I got the same chemo that they give men for testicular.
Oh, interesting. Okay,
Yeah,
okay. Yeah, I would love to connect and
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
for sure. It's very inspirational. I think it's awesome.
Oh,
Yeah, and I also think it's awesome how you just, you know, sometimes it is God's plan. I do believe in that. It's like whatever is given to you in life, sometimes it's meant to be. So I love your attitude with that. That's awesome.
I always say I walk by faith, not by sight.
Awesome. Yes, I love that. I love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, Rebecca, your video is not you just we just have a picture of you on screen.
Oh,
I don't,
really? I
yeah,
guess I guess my video is frozen.
yeah,
Sorry about
yeah.
that.
Oh, there we go.
There
There
we
you
go.
go. There you go.
It just had
Well,
a glitch. Sometimes
why
my
don't you,
mind glitches the same way.
why don't you talk about some of the advocacy work that you do?
Sure.
Because it's extensive.
Yeah, yeah. Um, in a couple of weeks, I'll be going to Washington, D.C. for a meeting on an FDA panel where patient advocates share our experiences um, in the drug space. So that's something new. Um, After that meeting, they're going to have a rally for rare cancers. So I'm going to go to that since I'll be in DC anyway. Earlier this year, I was in DC with meeting with legislators on behalf of the National Coalition for Cancer Survivorship. I missed a meeting um, in March in DC with the Ovarian Cancer Research Alliance, OCRA, because I had a retinal detachment and I couldn't fly. So the retinal detachment that I had in late January really set me back. It cramped my style, it cramped my advocacy style for a few months. Because the way that they treat a retinal detachment, they put gas in your eye, and I had a gas bubble. And when you have a gas bubble in your eye, you can't be in any depressurized space. So I wasn't able to travel until May. Um, but I mean, it was a forced slowdown, and I took it and ran with it and listened to my body. My body obviously needed a break, and I spun it into a positive and started doing some puzzles and was lounging around the house and doing virtual work, and um, you just kind of go with the flow.
Yeah, in fact, you were supposed to speak earlier in the year, I remember, and you weren't able to because of that very
Yeah,
situation.
yeah.
Um, so, I mean, what we can all learn from Rebecca is just her ability to adjust to the situation and to make the best out of it as she goes along. You notice she's been through so much. I mean, you look at the unbelievable things that have happened to you with, going through a radical hysterectomy without your uh, consent, no insurance, and all these different things. And you were able to, I mean, what we have available to us today is so much different than what you had available to you back then.
Yeah, yeah.
So talk about the evolution from your perspective of how things have grown and grown and many things have grown for the better.
Oh, beyond. Um, in the early 2000s, a few years out of my cancer diagnosis, there wasn't anything about cancer survivorship. It was, we treated you, now go live your life. Now we have a whole trend of cancer survivorship, like living beyond your cancer. We're going to be living longer and longer now that we have the cancer treatments that we have and the early detection tools that we have. We're going to be finding cancer earlier, so that way we'll live longer. That means you're going to have more cancer survivors than ever before. And we want to live a good quality of life. Quality of life for cancer survivors was unheard of back in 2002, 2003. And now we have so many, not just resources, not just organizations, but advocates themselves that are speaking up and saying, hey, we want better quality health care. We want better primary care. We want better after cancer survivor, after cancer treatment life. We want better access to mental health. We want better access to physical opportunities like, health club memberships or physical training, things like that. Things that back in 2002, 2003 were basically unheard of.
Yeah, I mean that's what I call back then I call that the Stone Age. And it
Yeah,
really was. It was very
basically,
arch
yes.
it was very archaic. And
Very. During treatment, my doctor said he didn't want me exercising. Nothing.
wow.
Nothing. Wouldn't let me go for walks. He said, no. I said, I want to go to a Walmart. And he's like, well, if you have to go to Walmart, wear a mask and have somebody push you around in the wheelchair. That
Wow.
was my highlight. when I was on chemo was going to Walmart because I was like craving being around people. And now you can exercise to your comfort level. It's just night and day. We've learned so much in the last 20 years. It's really amazing. And we're set to learn so much more.
Absolutely. And you are a leading advocate of that. And so we thank you and for what you're doing and what you do as far as advocacy is absolutely amazing. And so one person can make a difference. One person uh, who's driven. It's amazing. And then pretty soon you have another person, and then another person, and then, all these different things lead to what we are seeing today. Because, uh, when I grew up and when most of all of us grew up, I didn't even know what cancer was. I remember asking my dad, what is cancer? And, he didn't really know either. He was like, it's really bad. And I said, what's going to happen to them? Oh, that person's going to die. And that's the perception. And I think we are making a difference in that perception. Look at all of us here. Uh, all of us are, for the most part anyway, uh, we are living our lives and looking to make things better for other people. And that's what it's going to take is just this movement. Cancer is, whether anybody wants to admit it or not, cancer is an epidemic. 1 in 2 men by the age of 50 will get cancer, statistics say. 1 in 3 women will get cancer. And for the men, it's prostate. For the women, it's breast cancer. Those are stunning statistics. And yet, people are still not afraid. So when they get that diagnosis, all of a sudden, it's like, they're on defense, they're backpedaling. And, they're the only thing they know is, okay, I got to listen to my doctor. And, I say this a lot. We become who we are by studying. We become doctors, we become lawyers, we become accountants. We've studied years and years and years to become whatever it is that we become. And yet, when we get that cancer diagnosis, how many people are prepared? How many people have studied up on cancer and are ready for that diagnosis? Nobody, essentially. Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. And so all of a sudden, you're expected to make life-altering decisions with no knowledge. How crazy is that? You're expected to make decisions that will change you for the rest of your life. That does not make sense.
No.
So, and the medical system takes advantage of that. The medical system uses that against us, uses that against you by knowing that. And so all of a sudden they're pushing you. You got to get you got to get in treatments as soon as possible. When I got diagnosed, it was like, you know, I went through 3 months of testing before I got a diagnosis. And I just kept saying, keep testing me, because I want to find out, where all of this is. And so that's one of the things that is used against patients, and it really irritates me and it really bothers me and it's wrong. So talk about that, Rebecca, from your perspective.
About the healthcare system or
Sure.
what specific part?
Well, you had no insurance.
Yeah.
And Yeah, I think that's a good subject to talk about is some of the things that are available to uh, cancer patients that do have limited finances.
Yes, there are all sorts of resources. The Patient Advocacy Foundation, um, there's all sorts of organizations that will match you with survivors of your specific cancer around your age, long-term survivors, short-term survivors, so you can get matched with people. There's one called Immerman Angels, Fourth Angel, um, all sorts of resources, not just for the patient, but for the caregiver as well, which is an amazing resource for caregivers. Not a whole lot of time is spent helping caregivers through the process. And I learned something when my mom got diagnosed with adenocarcinoma of the small intestine. I learned it was much easier for me to be the patient. It was much easier for me to be the patient because watching my mom suffer through what she suffered through with that small intestine cancer was excruciatingly painful. It was helpless, um, painful, not just watching her go through the treatment, but watching her fight with insurance, watching her deal with scheduling treatments and blood work and CT scans and just the whole ball of wax. And there are services now to help caregivers, but when she was going through it in 2008, it was very, very limited. I think people with kind hearts and great ideas are forming nonprofits to help fill in those gaps that the healthcare system as a whole just ignored. And now they are able to plug in and try to fill some of those gaps that the healthcare system just ignored. But nonprofit organizations can only do so much. And the healthcare system obviously is not ideal. But you know, thank God for nonprofits that exist out there to help fill in those gaps and help with co-pays and help with transportation, stipends, utilities. There's an organization that'll help you with house cleaning. Like if you've just been diagnosed with cancer and you need somebody to come clean your house. Um, there's just a plethora. There's an organization called Nancy's List that'll help you get all those resources emailed to you. And she comes up with a weekly email. Here's our weekly list of different resources. Here's a new organization. Here's a list of cancer retreats. I've been on several cancer retreats, and that sounds like an oxymoron, right? Like, why would I go on a retreat for cancer survivors? But it was extremely therapeutic. And also for caregivers. Caregivers are usually invited to those same types of retreats because retreats are healing. And what we've been through, whether a caregiver or a patient, sometimes I call my caregivers my co-survivors. We're surviving it together. It's traumatizing for us both. Um, so to go off to a retreat in a different state, in a different city, where they're giving me tools to cope with what I've experienced, have been extremely therapeutic. So I highly recommend those types of experiences.
Up Nancy's List, and I'm very familiar with Nancy's List. That's a great, great resource.
Mhm.
Um, and so, you know, the resources in today's world are out there. It's just a matter of you willing to reach out and find them. And, you could reach out to myself or Rebecca, um, and, find out some of these resources. Let me ask you this question. If you were just newly diagnosed today with no insurance, what would you do?
The system has not changed. Um, Here in my hometown, to qualify for the county indigent care program, you'd have to basically have no money coming in. I think they allow you one car, um, and just basically have zero income. And in the state of Texas, MD Anderson, which was, some say the number one cancer hospital in the world, at least the top two or three in the whole world. They're a state funded entity. So as a state funded entity, they are required to have a certain amount of charity care. And when you come in already having charity care from your county, most likely your care will be covered at a hospital like MD Anderson, but they don't advertise that. They don't go around putting ads about, hey, come and get free care at MD Anderson. It's just one of those things that there's a ton of paperwork, lots of red tape to go through. Also, if you're currently disabled and you're on Medicare, that's covered as well. And again, that's not something that is advertised and they're not going to tell you about it, but you have to push for it. You have to push for it and probably push very hard, go through a lot of hoops, sign a lot of paperwork, probably a thick stack of, you know, bank statements, financials, stuff to prove that everything that, stuff to prove that you can't pay for your care. But yeah, it's still a mess, but it's what we've got, and we try to make it work the best way possible.
Would you say it's better today than it was back then? Or has it evolved? Or what are your thoughts?
In some ways, it's gotten worse.
Really?
Yeah, because now the healthcare companies have been able to shape and rewrite laws and have significant influence on our legislators on laws that don't protect us and protect them and help make them $500 billion a year type companies. So profits over, saving lives. It's sad, but that's why advocates like us and anyone that's here on this call, you care and you attend things like this to educate yourselves and to understand what's going on out there. There are people that are in surgery and their surgeon is getting a call from United Healthcare saying, stop the surgery. We want to do this other thing that's less expensive. It's getting worse.
Wow. That's that's a great, thank you for sharing that perspective. Um, and that's a great insight perspective. It's not what it should be, but we have to
No,
deal with reality.
and we have to do what we can to stand up to them and push back. Because the more you give them, the more they want to take. So the more we are better at advocating for ourselves and going to our legislators and telling them what our experiences are with healthcare, the more that our stories are shared, the more we put the healthcare companies at notice that we're not going to take this anymore. We're gonna fight. You may make things difficult for me, but be prepared for a fight.
Wow. Anybody have any thoughts? Sergio, would you like to chime in? You just put some in the chat.
Actually, I have been putting stuff in the chat. I had to appeal about 3 times with United. It's funny that you mentioned that with United Healthcare. They really made it very difficult to obtain medications or referrals to particular radiologists. I mean, I was able to get lucky enough that as soon as the the new inscription with my employer came around, that I ended up switching to a PPO, ended up going to Kenneth Norris. But United Healthcare is not very, um, how could I say, welcoming to cancer patients. Let's put it that way. They don't want to pay out to get anything done. But was able to get on certain medication for because let me retract that. They weren't willing to pay for the medication pills that I needed to take at the time. And because the cancer was so active, the doctor himself went and opened up a shelf where he had all the samples of the medication. And he says, Mr. Rodriguez, here you go. Take three of these. Hopefully, we'll be able to take care of being able to get United Healthcare to cover these medications, because they should. I don't know why they're giving you trouble, but I'm going to give you three containers for 3 months. And I'll tell you, I'll never forget that. That was a great doctor. Unfortunately, again, I moved over to Kenneth Norris Cancer Center, or a KEC, and with the new insurance. And I'm glad that that doctor gave me that medication, because it really got me going. And Kenneth Norris said that that doctor was a hero in this case. So, uh, but yeah, United Health is just horrible, just horrible.
I think we all have our own individual uh, issues with insurance. One of the things that I went through, I also have United, and I know who they are and everything like that. What was frustrating for me was, uh, let's see, I had most of my procedures done in 2021. Um, minor surgeries and procedures and everything like that. And what United did for me was they reviewed, uh, let's see, back in 2023, they reviewed all of the procedures that I went through back in 2021, and then started adding uh, cost to each procedure, saying that uh, they didn't cover it. And I'm like, what the heck is going on here? And they said, well, that's the way it is. And so, is there anything you could do about something like that you know, Rebecca?
Become involved with cancer advocacy organizations like the National Coalition for Cancer Survivorship. They have an annual meeting called CPAT, and you can apply for a scholarship, and they'll help you with lodging and airfare, and they'll give you training on becoming a great advocate, and also schedule meetings with your legislative official, and not just throw you to the wolves, metaphorically speaking, but also train you on how to work with your legislators. And not just a one and done, go to DC and meet them, but also work with them when they're back home. Also get them to learn about you, and hopefully care about you. Um, that's a good start.
Great advice. Great advice. Anybody else have any input they'd like to mention? We're going to close out here shortly.
I just had it's more of a comment, but I just wanted to say thank you so much to Rebecca for sharing with us today.
Sure.
I'm inspired by your passion for advocacy, and I admire how you took the circumstance that happened to you, and instead of becoming bitter and, you decided to turn it around and just run with it. I was just curious, where do you think your passion for advocacy comes from? Is that just something that is part of your personality, or was it inspired by the state of how tough it is to access the help, or where do you think it comes from?
I think it grew from my exposure to my dad, who was always about justice.
Right.
He always had a strong sense of right and wrong. And when something was wrong, he would always teach me that to do something about it and speak up.
That's wonderful. You're
Yeah.
doing an amazing thing for other people, and I'm spot on. I'm nodding with all the things you're saying, and particular with the needing to use humor periodically to try to get through things. And also, I wanted to say just thank you again for the work that you're doing, and also
Sure.
thank you for mentioning that there's lifelong, side effects and, implications from having treatment. Because I think that that's something that people don't understand unless they know someone who's gone through it or they've gone through it themselves. Once you've dealt with, really heavy treatments, and you kind of sort of look okay on the outside, but on the inside things are still, it's kind of like a new normal that you have to go through, but most people don't understand that. So just thank you for mentioning that. And again,
Sure.
I'm so happy to have the chance to hear about your work. And I just,
Sure.
it's boggling to me the extra hoops, because I'm from Canada, so it's the extra hoops that you have to go through to access the care. And I'm part of another cancer support group where most of the people are from the States, and they're horror stories about insurance and co-pays and this going wrong, and
Oh
people
yeah.
have treatments canceled, and it's
Yeah.
just, oh my gosh, I can't imagine. And the added stress that that would put onto you when you're just fighting to stay
Stay
alive.
alive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't
Yeah.
imagine. But you're really being a catalyst for change, and you're improving the lives of others that are coming after you. So that's fantastic. Thanks so
I'm
much.
trying. I'm trying. And remember, it's not just our physical health that we're fighting for. We're now fighting for our mental health because the things that we've been through, our trauma stays with us. Some people I know have been able to put it in a box on a shelf in the closet towards the back and never deal with it. God bless them. But that's not the way I am. I
Exactly.
carry it around with me, and I never know when something's going to trigger.
Right. And the last thing I was thinking of is, as you were sharing your story and the work that you do now, is when is your book coming out? When we, where can we find it? You should put your experiences to paper, because I think it would resonate with a lot of people. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you.
So well said, Carrie. Thanks for your input. That was great. Really,
Thank
really great. Uh, we could take one more input. Anybody want to input? Uh, what I want to do right now is I want to close out the recording. And so I just wanted to thank everyone for joining us here at the Cancer Conquering Community. And we want to thank Rebecca for sharing her knowledge and her experiences. Uh, I mean, it's like an incredible story. So thank you so much. And we will see you next Thursday on the Cancer Conquering Community.